Good morning, guys. It is around 2 o'clock in the morning. I had a moment where I was actually feeling really good, so I decided it'd be a good time to make a video. And today's topic, I'm going to talk a little bit about hoarding and why conventional cleanup advice does not seem to work for hoarders. Normally, when you give someone cleaning advice, it'll be something along the lines of break it up into small steps or make it fun or some sort of tip that takes away the sense that it's a chore or that makes it seem like a much smaller chore. Or they might give you ways to clean more efficiently, like use this product and this technique instead of that one. And that probably works really well for someone doing an average cleanup, but it does not work at all for most hoarders in my experience. And I say this as a hoarder myself, and I often get asked why that is. Why don't they just clean it up? Why don't they just throw it out? And I'm going to tell you. Obviously, I can't speak for every single hoarder, but as someone who herself is a hoarder and who has spoken to hoarders and who has done quite a bit of research, these are some of the common themes that I have identified when it comes to why hoarding cleanups just don't happen and why people are so resistant to cleaning up a hoard even when they seem to want to do so. And the first one is probably the most obvious, and that is that it's very common for hoarders to have conditions that impair things related to executive functioning. And executive functioning, to put it really simply, is the ability to set a goal and to engage in goal-directed behavior and follow through to that goal. You know what you want, you know the skills that you need, you know the tools that you need, you know the steps that you need to follow, you know how to stay on task, and you actually go through and accomplish the goal. It's very common for people who are hoarders to have disabilities of some kind that impair their executive functioning. It could be dementia, it could be some form of autism, it could be intellectual disability, it could be a whole list of conditions. Especially as people get older and they start to show cognitive decline, this becomes more common. So if you have problems with executive functioning, telling such a person to break it down into smaller tasks doesn't mean anything. You could tell someone to mop a floor or to wash dishes, and you can break it down into really small steps. But to a person with executive dysfunction, it's all one primordial soup. All the skills, all the tasks are just bubbling up, demanding your attention, and they all kind of mean the same thing. They have the same importance, and they all happen at the same time. There is no sequential thinking when executive dysfunction is involved. So if you want someone who struggles with executive dysfunction, whether they are a hoarder or not, to complete a task, you need to really work with them on breaking down not just the steps that they need, but also the tools that they need and the particular motor skills that they need, and just break it down into every little component with them, because that's not something they can necessarily do on their own. And that's for a task as simple as mopping a floor or washing the dishes, which are really simple. Imagine having this problem and having an entire hoard that has taken over your house and having to clean that and know it's a problem, but be completely unable, just paralyzed to do something about it. So that is one common problem that we see in hoarders a lot of the time. And then there is poor prioritization. And that's part of executive functioning, I think, is the ability to decide which tasks are more important and which tasks should get done first. A good example is, do I rearrange my teddy bear collection or do I take out the trash? I know, and the average person probably knows, that you should take out the trash first because that is a sanitary issue. It attracts pests, it smells bad, and it makes your house look really dumpy, and that's just something that you don't want to have in your house. To a person who is really advanced in their hoarding condition and who maybe doesn't have a whole lot of self-awareness, it's way more important to rearrange the teddy bear collection because they have a relationship with that object or collection of objects. They want to ensure that object's safety and comfort and preserve that relationship, and preserving the harmony of the home that they've built with their objects is more important than taking out the trash. So therapy is really important here, and just being really understanding and just knowing just how they think is going to be really important here. And kind of related to that concept is the fear of injury and the fear of lost history. And that I can speak to quite a bit because I struggle really badly with that in my own journey towards recovering from hoarding. People who are hoarders develop relationships with their objects. And these objects have backstories, they have names, they have histories, they have likes and dislikes. There was a whole ecosystem in their house built up of these objects that they have a relationship to, that they are a part of. And discarding these objects or damaging these objects is damaging themselves and putting themselves out of equilibrium and causing them, in a sense, a kind of moral injury. And related to that is the idea of lost history. A lot of people hoard things from early childhood, old newspapers, old books. They want to leave a physical sign that they were here and that they existed. They want to be a part of a time that's past. And they see themselves as the keeper of the secrets of the past. And being asked to discard an old newspaper, you're asking them to discard basically a little museum. And it is a little museum to them. And when it comes to the fear of moral injury and the fear of lost history, you need to find ways to fulfill that need without collecting objects in a way that is detrimental to their home or to their health or to their safety, and that doesn't interfere with their relationships. And lost history in particular is very painful, is because a lot of hoarders are isolated, and their childhood objects may be the only reminders of who they were. They may not have loved ones alive that they can share baby pictures with, that know who they were when they were children, that share those memories. They may all be dead. So, without someone to share their lives with and share the memories with, all they have are these objects as proof that their prior self even existed at all. And again, therapy is super helpful here, and just be really understanding. And maybe if you're able to, be that person. Help them talk about their lives and tell the story of their lives, and help them redirect into something that is a bit more functional. And something else that people with hoarding struggle with is fear of future need. And you see this a lot in people who grew up in the Great Depression. They didn't want to get rid of anything. even if it was obvious trash to us, to them it was something that could be reused because they didn't have the money to replace it. Because they remember what it was like to have absolutely nothing, no money, no resources, to live in the Dust Bowl, and hoarding whatever they had was their way of surviving. And the psychological trauma of that is immense. And you don't have to live through the Great Depression. It could be surviving under authoritarian regimes. It could be just surviving extreme poverty. Some people react by hoarding every little thing because they don't know when it's going to be lost, or when they're going to need it again, or when it's going to be taken from them. And OCD is common in hoarders. OCD actually used to be considered, hoarding actually used to be considered a subset of OCD. Now it's considered its own condition, but they are related. And people with OCD who hoard can have different types of OCD. And this might surprise you, but some of them have cleanliness and neatness OCD. And you look at their house and you're like, that's not clean, that's not clean, that's not neat. Like, what are you talking about? But for them, neatness is about making sure their teddy bear collection is perfectly aligned and untouched. And they will devote so many hours to that the whole rest of the house goes to shit. Or they may have magical beliefs about numbers. I have to have a certain number of every object in order to be safe. And if you have to believe that you have to have 10 of every object, it's very easy to see where hoarding could become a problem. Cleanliness. If you develop a cleanliness problem because of hoarding, a pest problem, a trash problem, you may be so disgusted by it that you just ignore it. You can't touch it. You are paralyzed by it. And then it grows. So OCD manifests in hoarding in some very interesting ways. And if you have not maybe heard much about that, I recommend that you read about it. I can certainly give you some resources if you would like. International OCD Foundation is a great resource, and I find it very hard to believe that you will find a hoarder that does not have some kind of OCD. And the last one I want to talk about is visual disabilities. I have a visual disability, nonverbal learning disorder. It's also called developmental visual spatial disorder, and it impairs your ability for your brain to process what you're seeing. It's like my eyes read in English, but my brain reads in Korean. And my brain is reading the Korean transliteration of the English that my eyes are seeing. That's the best way to describe it. There are other analogies that I could use. So if you have this type of visual disability, you can't judge space and time very well. So you may not realize how big of a hoard something is because you can't see how far it has crept to the middle of your floor. To you, it's still on the very sides of the room. You may not see exactly how high it's piled up. You may not visually see that dark spot on the floor is actually ants until you get up close and look. And if you have cleanliness OCD, you're not going to want to get up close and look. So those are all of the big reasons why people hoard that people don't tend to talk about. I could do whole videos on each one of these. Maybe I will. I love your comments and your questions. Please let me know if you have any. I hope you found this useful and you have a great night.